It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America. We are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. We've made it to a Friday. That's just great. All right, we got to clean the desk off.
Yeah, so it can pile up on us over the weekend, and we have to come in Sunday night scrambling to remember all the insanity that happened on Friday.
Monday is the hardest day, isn't it?
It really is. I don't even know why they give us a weekend off anymore.
Yeah, because it's things pile up. The news cycle moves so quickly. By the time we get to Monday, it's like, geez, we haven't been on the air for a year.
Oh, yeah. Let's go back to because the Friday stuff feels so dated by the time we get in Sunday night. It's like, oh, yeah. And then that happened on Friday, which is quite often a major news event. But with the insanity continuing every day, it just piles up, you know?
All right, you don't have to hoard toilet paper.
What
you didn't have
it's my hobby, though.
You didn't have to begin with because of the
strike.
The strike.
Yeah.
The strike is at least over for 3 months.
Over? Yeah, it's there. So here we are on hold. Here's the new offer. The new offer is a 62% increase in pay, where the old offer was 50%, and the union was asking for 77% increase over the life of the contract. So they get to 62, and they agreed to a 90-day pause. So they are back at work for 90 days. That 62% offer will stay on the table for that 90 days and then be automatically rescinded if they don't take it in 90 days. And I'm guessing they'll go back on strike if they don't take it. I'm guessing would be the position of the union to get back out on the line and strike some more. But it will not affect the holiday shopping season. So.
And what's to be negotiated now is how much automation to allow.
Right.
Because the union said 0. No more automation from now until the end of the contract at least.
Right.
And then the next contract, probably they'd want the same on it. Yeah, I don't think it's hard to figure out what happened here.
No.
Number one, the public was not too happy with the head of the union.
No.
Because you saw that on social media. What? A union leader makes almost $1 million a year, has a yacht, a Bentley or had a yacht.
Mm-hmm.
I saw some stories that weren't sure whether he still owned them or not, but lives in a massive house.
Right.
And then the way he was saying, we'll shut it all down. That didn't go over too well.
No.
And then, so that was number one. I think the final nail in the coffin that made them say, okay, we've got to do something, I really believe was DeSantis calling out the National Guard to go to the Florida ports and saying we're going to stop violence and where we can actually take over the process, however they would have done it,
right,
of replacing those workers in order to do it.
Right.
And his argument was not arguable. Sorry, we need these ports open to get materials and things that people need in the Southeast because of the hurricane.
Right.
And I thought that yesterday when he said that. I said, this is so bad. What are they going to do? They can't allow, as a union, they can't say, okay, there's an exception for Florida because of a hurricane. Because then that's the first crack. Yeah. So what do? Okay, we'll agree to 62% and just extend it for another 3 months.
Right.
Until this is over. Because they couldn't win that argument.
Yeah.
And so the other thing is when we laid out how much they make with the overtime. didn't really get a lot of sympathy from a lot of people out there, and the fact that it was going to affect what's on the grocery shelves. This is where it comes into being. Doesn't matter what you say. Yeah, but it's union, it's union. Yeah, it's union because you're worried about your own self-interest. Everybody's worried about their own self-interest, which is grocery prices.
Right.
That's just the reality of how people operate. They worry about their own self-interest. And if you say, well, our self-interest as dock workers is more important than you who have been suffering with inflation for the last 3 years, and you're going to have a lot of food stuff go up in prices, sorry, you can't win that.
No, you're not going to win that. You're look, if you're talking about safety issues, long hours, low pay, you're going to build sympathy from the public on that. Because what you need in a situation like this really is sympathy from the public because of what the role is of the ports. We're not talking about one industry that moves through the ports. We're talking about a number of goods. In fact, pretty much any type of good, depending on which ports you're talking about, that moves through those ports. So as the consumer and the largest consuming nation, we're going to have the say-so on the sympathy level. And you're not going to get that sympathy. As you mentioned, the boss with his massive estate, his massive paycheck, driving a Bentley, is not going to you're not going to get sympathy from people who are underwater due to inflation. And you want more pay to the tune of, again, 77% increase. Well, that's a problem. The automation thing, again, is coming. I don't know how you ultimately keep that. You might keep it out of this contract. It's not going to be a forever clause, and it's not going to be ironclad. It might say over the next few years we won't increase automation by, more than 20% or something like that or whatever, but it's only a matter of time before that automation moves in, strictly because of the workload.
And the other thing that you didn't get a lot of sympathy at all is that out of the 50,000 port workers, longshoremen, longshore persons, only 25,000 are working at any time.
Mm-hmm.
But the others, a significant portion of the others, according to the reports, are still collecting full pay.
Yeah.
You're not going to get sympathy from the public. And I think that everything that started this week, it just kept going downhill. And then when DeSantis came out and said, these ports have to be open. You've got people that got Americans that are really suffering here. We need the ports open.
Yeah.
And so I'm sending the National Guard to prevent violence and, at the ports, I guess the port entrances, and also where it is possible, and I don't know what the plan was here, where it was possible to have the National Guard be the ones to assist in unloading things that needed to be unloaded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, you can't win that one. You can't win. Okay,
right.
All right, we're going to get into a fight with the National Guard to protect our ports and the union workers when you've got people out there suffering, thousands upon thousands that are homeless.
Yeah. Right.
You can't win that one. And so I think that's what really encouraged the settlement.
Yeah, and I think too, again, I think that I don't know where the members are on it. I know where leadership is. We know what the official numbers are, what the demand is, and look, if you're vying for your job and you're trying to not be replaced by automation, you're trying to get a raise. I understand why you're doing it, but ultimately, you're going to have to. There's for a strike that is so huge that could, if it went on long enough, could cause shortages at this level. You're not going to gain public sympathy. In fact, it's going to be quite the opposite. if we ever got to the point of that creating shortages, especially after union leadership has flexed the way he did. Hey, we can shut this down. Well, you do that, and people are going to be looking to shut you down. That's the way it goes. That's the worst time you're going to flex. What you try and do is say, hey, the working conditions aren't safe. Hey, our men and women here are working long hours, low pay. It sounds like they're making a lot of money, but given the job and how dangerous it is and blah, 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 you're out there every day, and you're hoping, I guess, people don't find out about your nearly $1 million paycheck and the Bentley you drive. But there's the problem. When you flex like that, you're drawing more attention to you, and it becomes less about the union members even.
Yeah.
And I think that was a huge mistake.
And then you had, you know, as we had said, look, we disagree with how he's doing it, but he may end up hurting his own position when he, was saying, the power that we have to shut down everything. Mm-hmm. Well, Americans look at that and say, well, we don't like monopolies, whether they come in the form of companies or unions.
Right. Yeah.
Because what you're stating is your monopoly of the ports.
Right. We have all the control here.
Right.
Yeah.
At that point, that's a union monopoly. Mm-hmm. We don't like that as a public.
Right.
And as we said, you look at the populist point of view, as we're taught, which is more popular right now. The populist point of view is more popular than ever. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because really, both you have a significant portion on both sides that embrace it, and the populist mentality is okay. Unions can be good for people that have very tough jobs and don't make any type of pay. When you start making the point, and the press starts making the point that the union leadership is part of the rich elite with yachts and Bentleys and big houses, and then you see, okay, what are they actually making? Well, what are you talking about? They got 50,000 members, and only 25,000 are working at any point. So there are people that are collecting full pay that aren't working.
Right.
What the hell's that?
Right.
You do not evoke sympathy. And if you're trying to sell it to the American people by saying, we'll shut down everything and you'll suffer, you're not going to win that.
No, you can't flex in a moment like that. You just can't.
And then you can't flex when the governor of Florida says, we can't close down the ports like this.
Right.
And so we're going to send the National Guard in to see what we can do.
Right.
You can't win that argument. Sorry, people that have been devastated by a hurricane don't matter. You're not going to win it. And I think that's why they said, okay, let's take this 3-month reprieve.
Yep. Yeah,
because still they haven't discussed the the automation part of it.
No, I didn't see any of that in any of the stories yesterday when they announced that they were paused here. Likely because that's, if that's going to be a sticking point for the union, I don't know how you make that happen, honestly. I just expect to be out of work for a long time, expect to be on the line striking for a long time. I just don't see how you make that happen. You can't keep the inevitable from happening. The workload, the demand at those ports is growing. One of the frustrations at the LA ports has been, how slow things move and how slow the union had kept things moving. Well, we're at the point where the delivery infrastructure, the supply chain has to be operating 24/7. It does. Big rigs are on the road in the middle of the night, and we know that full well.
Trains are running.
Trains are running. Out there at stores, even if they're not open, they've got people working in them to put things on the shelves. The supply chain, start to finish, is a 24/7 operation because it's global, which is the entire part of the point, to facilitate the entire global movement of commerce, of things, widgets. And you have to know that. It has to be a 24/7 operation, and even then, keeping up with it with manpower alone is going to be impossible at some point.
866-90 Red Eye.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by House Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
This storm has left a lot of devastation, and recovery will be complex.
FEMA official Frank Mantrenga talking about Hurricane Helene, which has done a lot of damage while cutting power to thousands of people. And a USDA food safety expert says if you're expecting a multi-hour outage, you can do some things that might give you a better shot at saving foods in your fridge or your freezer. Meredith Carruthers says without power, your fridge can only keep perishable foods safe from bacteria for about 4 hours.
And a freezer, if it's half full, will keep a safe temperature for 24 hours, and if it's full, about 48 hours.
So before the power goes out, move perishable foods out of the fridge into the freezer, fill plastic bags or containers with water to take up any empty freezer space.
That'll help keep your freezer colder for longer.
But once the temperature of food in that freezer gets up above 40 degrees, Meredith says you've only got about 2 hours before that food will become unsafe to eat. Gary Crawford reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Kerry McNamara. Yeah, I think the critical error from the Longshoremen's Union was, number one, the bragging of the head of it about how, basically we'll shut everything down.
Yeah, right.
And, that's the problem, because that's what he doesn't realize is the climate change narrative in this country, where people say, oh, absolutely, we need to save the planet. We need to save the planet. Well, would you pay $10 more to do it? No.
I mean, people, exactly.
Right.
In a survey, the planet's number one. But are you gonna actually pay more? Yeah.
Yeah. Would you pay and when they're asked to pay? It's like absolutely not.
Right.
And so what you're saying is for unions, it's like, yep, I'm pro union. Yep, those unions should be able to do this and do that. Well, you've got no problem if Starbucks decides to unionize. It's not really going to affect your life too much.
No.
Or you have a number of Starbucks unionize.
Right.
You have the Longshoremen's Union that is an absolute monopoly, and can make it so there are empty shelves and prices go up. People could care less about the union at that point.
Yeah. We don't know correlation versus causation on the whole Starbucks thing. Just as a side note, since you brought it up, they unionize and their earnings just drop dramatically. Again, not sure if it's correlation or causation, but certainly we look at ports and we understand the very dynamics of the movement of goods and the cost of movement of goods.
That was the weakest picket line I think I've ever seen. The Starbucks right around the corner from my dad's house.
Yeah, it's where it began, right? I mean, in that area.
That's where it started, really.
Yeah.
Is in Buffalo.
In Buffalo.
And so right around the corner from my dad's, there's a Starbucks, and all these, see the picketers, they're not even out on the street.
Right.
They're at the tables outside the Starbucks, all sit at the table, look like they're drinking coffee, and the signs are just sort of hanging there. And I'm like, that's not a good picket line.
That's not what you do.
I've been on a picket line.
You gotta get
That's
out
not
there.
a good picket line.
You got to get out there. You got to walk the circle.
Yes, you need to be. You can't quiet quit on a picket line.
When you stand up for something, you actually have to stand up.
Powered by windmills and solar panels. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Kerry McNamara. You know, it's the end of the week, and I haven't looked at any of the Babylon Bee headlines.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Are you ready?
Okay. All right.
FEMA reports they've spent all the taxpayer funding on a sweet PowerPoint presentation about racial equity.
PowerPoint.
That was one of my.
Oh, that's funny.
That was one of my
I love it.
favorite ones.
By the way, that one actually might be true. We need an investigation.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Harris supporters trying to figure out how to convert joy into groceries.
How do I feed my family with it?
School shooters distance themselves from Tim Walz.
Oh wow. Oh, man.
Young Hezbollah recruit can't believe he's already made regional manager.
Wow.
Department of Justice indicts J.D. Vance for brutally beating 3 women.
Oh, that one's funnier the more you think about it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, the entire thing is like, well, you're calling Walz a woman. That's sexist or whatever. You're the ones. It's the Democrats. Nobody would be talking about this.
Right.
It's the Democrats. You talk about weird. This whole thing of the whole narrative of them attempting to define what type of masculinity the Democrats want and what type of masculinity they believe will put fear into the Republicans.
Well,
Republicans don't talk that way.
No.
We could care less. Where do you stand on the issues?
Look, Walz is my permission structure to make these jokes. Thank you. Good night. Drive safely.
We can't. We can't be. George Costanza would walk right off. Okay, you can't beat that one. We can't do that. We've got time to fill.
Time to go. Play some music. It's time to go home.
If we were stand-up comics, we're off stage. You got another 5 minutes. I don't care. I'm
Doesn't
leaving right
matter.
now.
We're done.
Oh my gosh! And then I think there was one final one.
All right.
This was actually my personal favorite.
Okay. All right.
And a lot of people might not get it. But if you watch any of the financial networks like CNBC, you will.
Okay. All right.
Mad Money. Jim Cramer predicts White Sox will win the World Series.
That's hilarious. I love that.
That is really good.
That's funny.
Oh my! I'm just. But that. So the two things out of this week, and one of them again is with you've got the Republicans out there every single day, whether you like the Republicans or not. What are the Republicans talking about? The things Americans care about: the border, the economy,
the problems, everything that's broken. Yeah.
Right, everything that's broken.
Yep.
The border, inflation, support for Israel.
Yeah.
The Biden's foreign policy against the world, Iran, all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at the focus and that's why the joke about J.D. Vance, charge the Department of Justice charging J.D. Vance with, beating 3 women. And it's because of the obsession of the left with this bizarre thing of trying to identify what a new masculinity is that will somehow attract voters when nobody gives a damn about that.
Right.
And they're obsessed with it. And it started, we talked about when the campaign first started and Walz was in the guy holding the gun, his hunting cap, the camouflage. And I'll never forget the headline or the quote that was in it. Republicans are scared of a real man who was a Democrat, like the hunter and it's like, no, they're not.
No.
What kind of delusion do you have in your head? And then that moved on, and then they brought, Emhoff in, and then, the Jen Psaki's, interviews and obsession of the new kind of male. And it was Dana Bash, though, that actually brought in Walz, where it said, well, no, Walz is he's a new kind. He's not the testosterone kind of masculinity that exists out there. He's a new masculinity.
Yeah.
She never defined it. We were saying, could you please define what the new masculinity is? Because you seem to know what it is. You won't tell us, but you can't define a woman.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you can define isn't that misogyny in itself?
Right.
If you're attempting at least to define a man in a different way, but you can't even define what a woman is in any way.
Exactly.
God, it's so screwed up. And then the Jen Psaki with Emhoff about just like she was like in awe.
Yeah,
you're just the new type of masculinity. That's so bizarre.
It's just weird.
And so they're sitting there in their own little bubble of the world, thinking that things like that is what the American public wants to hear.
Yeah, it really is. Like they're convincing people. And then the question is, yeah, but okay, let's say you are, but what are you convincing them of? What are you striving for? What are you trying to win with those moments?
Right. What type of permission structure are you attempting to give to us?
Exactly.
Oh, and by the way, that's the other thing that came out of this week was permission structure.
Yeah.
Which is, again, what Walls gives you. Permission structure.
Yeah.
That you now have permission as a male to believe you can be the Walls kind of male.
Yeah.
Which is what? Well, we haven't defined it yet, but it's him.
Right. Yeah. We don't know what that means, but yeah. Okay.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
And this is the other thing that came out of this week, and not just this week, but Hillary Clinton said it, I believe it was last week, and it's just bizarre how blunt they are. And it's people that are viewed as moderate Democrats, because John Kerry is not viewed, even though he's not viewed even by Democrats as being a radical, and neither is Hillary Clinton.
Right.
They view them as moderates. Both have come out. Hillary Clinton, about 2 weeks ago, stating that we need to have at least, increase civil fines for misinformation and hate speech, and even criminal charges for misinformation and hate speech. It's like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, what are you talking about?
And then you get, Walls talking about, that this started all with Walls talking about the fact that the Constitution does not protect, the free speech. First Amendment doesn't protect misinformation or hate speech. It's like, well, yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Of course,
yeah, sure it does.
I don't like hate speech and I don't like misinformation, but it protects it.
Right.
And then this from John Kerry. It came out last week, but he actually said it last week, but it didn't come out until last Saturday. So we had played it Monday as he talks about the First Amendment at the World Economic Forum. Here it is. Okay. Could you
here we go.
We're playing an audio, Harry. Thanks. Appreciate it.
And I think the dislike of and anguish over social media is just growing and growing and growing. And it's part of our problem, particularly in democracies, in terms of building consensus around any issue. It's really hard to govern today. You can't, there's the referees we used to have to determine what's a fact and what isn't a fact are kind of, been eviscerated to a certain degree. And people go and people self-select where they go for their news or for their information. And then you just get into a vicious cycle. So it's really, really hard, much harder to build consensus today than at any time in the 45, 50 years I've been involved in this. And there's a lot of discussion now about how you curb those entities in order to guarantee that you're going to have, some accountability on facts, et cetera. But look, if people go to only one source and the source they go to is sick and, has an agenda and they're putting out disinformation, our First Amendment stands as a major block to the ability to be able to just, hammer it out of existence. So what we need is to win the ground, win the right to govern by hopefully having, winning enough votes that you're free to be able to implement change. Now, obviously, there are some people in our country who are prepared to implement change in other ways, and
so
that's
you're
really
questioning
dangerous.
really if democracy can survive unregulated social media?
I think democracies are very challenged right now and have not proven they can move fast enough or big enough to deal with the challenges that we are facing.
What you heard there, the biggest part of what you heard, what stands out to me is that the pesky First Amendment is in our way.
Yeah.
We need to be able to pound it out so that we can implement change, the change we want. That stupid First Amendment gets in.
The referees, what the hell's he talking about, the referees?
Yeah.
That used to make sure we had the truth. Who the hell were the referees?
Right, right.
One of the best things
Yeah,
ever.
is there a government? Is there a branch of government? Is there a fourth branch of government? The referees, the referee branch, the officiating branch, because they suck.
Well, the referees apparently gave us permission structure.
Exactly. 15 yards. That's what stands out to me.
One of the best things ever is X having the community response to misinformation.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Right.
It's absolutely wonderful.
Right.
Well, who are the referees? Well, let the public be the referee.
Because that's what really came out to me is that when social media started doing that themselves, the company started, well, this has not been fact-checked and blah, 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 blah. Whoa. I am positive, I'm very confident that Abe Lincoln did say, be careful of what you read on Facebook.
Exactly. Right.
It's true. It's 100% true. We know ourselves. We understand now. A lot of people. Tim Allen actually posted something, and it was one of those memes where you'll see it, and it has a picture of the celebrity with a quote, and it's not a video. Still shot of the celebrity and a quote. And Tim Allen has had to come out a couple of times. I did not ever say this. That's not a quote from me. But he did it one time the other day, and he goes, but damn, I look good in that picture, don't I?
Well, I think the one thing that I took from the John Kerry thing is what a arrogant elitist, POS he is.
Yeah.
Because what he's saying is, you as an individual don't have the capability to find the truth.
Right.
And so you need people like him, the elitist, the arrogant elitist, who are actually clueless individuals. John Kerry is not a smart human being.
No. You hear he can't control his arrogance and his elitism when you hear him say things like, well, we have this First Amendment that that blocks us. He actually said the First Amendment blocks them. Right. It gets in their way. They can't get their agenda done. And then he's complaining about people that put out misinformation that have an agenda. Have you met Hillary Clinton?
Have you met the Biden administration?
Have you met John Kerry?
Have you met exactly?
I mean, seriously, dude.
I know. 866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So that is something that, of all the things over the last, doing talk radio since 89. And now, hey, this is it. This is the week. This is my official 35th year in talk radio, completed 35th year. And that's the one thing, when I became a talk radio host, Democrats used to defend freedom of speech like crazy. They were the ones saying Nazis should be able to march and everything else.
Yeah, right.
And it was consistent that they were absolutely for freedom of speech.
Right.
And completely changed now. They're completely against the First Amendment. They want restrictions, and you see it. And so when you get it from Hillary and you get it from John Kerry, who were around in 89.
Yeah, right.
And in the political world in 89, that were absolutely, there is no compromising on freedom of speech, now saying it has to go and you need to punish for misinformation. And they're too. Hillary saying it is a little bit galling because she, with the Russian hoax, perpetuated probably the biggest misinformation scandal in American presidential history.
Well, he was the first climate czar, and which means his entire job was misinformation. His last job in government was nothing but misinformation, selling the world a big lie so that the agenda could get done.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing how Democrats have said to hell with the First Amendment.
Yep.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.